I'm the youngest of two brothers, with a truly admirable older brother. My brother Jack, who is 5 years older than me, was a really kind person who cherished his family and friends, which is why I think there were always people around him. What's more impressive about Jack wasn't just that. Even though I'm his little brother saying this, he was really good looking. In his school days, he was even scouted by a famous talent agency. He had great grades and was athletic too, serving as the captain of the basketball team and leading them to the top 8 in the nationals. I always admired him so much, watching him from up close. On the other hand, I was a real coward. Short and a bit chubby, I wasn't bullied but rather treated like a lovable character. Yet I'd start crying if teased even in jest. I wished I had the brightness to laugh it off, but I was embarrassed by my own weakness, which would bring tears to my eyes even as a kid. When I was feeling down at home, my brother would always comfort me.
People who are true to their hearts can be kind to others, too.
Back when he was just a middle schooler, my brother said those words, and they've stayed with me deeply, even now as an adult. There's one memory with my brother that stands out the most to me. It was when I was in the 4th grade. There was a girl named Mira who was a childhood friend. Mira was very kind and cheerful, and she was also my first crush. Our houses were next to each other, so we went to school together every day. We were still in elementary school, so dating wasn't something we thought about, but I felt very happy about walking side by side with her every day. But then one day, when I was about to head home with Mira as usual, she said,
"I have something to do today, so you go on ahead."
It was the first time she'd ever said anything like that, but I didn't question it. I just said, okay, and started my way home alone. After reaching home and dropping off my backpack, I went outside, thinking of going to the park. That's when I thought I heard voices coming from a vacant lot I usually didn't enter. Peering through a gap in the overgrown trees towards where the voice came from, there was Mira. What's she doing? As I leaned in a bit closer, I saw a group of 6th grade boys surrounding Mira. Even I could tell from the situation that they were not just playing around.
"I want to go home now."
Mira kept saying that, but the 6th graders on their bikes were blocking her way, not letting her pass.
You're just a 4th grader. Can't you listen to what we're saying?
The 6th graders were intimidating Mira. Listening in, it seemed like one of the older boys had a crush on Mira and wanted to date her. Mira was refusing, and they said they wouldn't let her go until she agreed. I couldn't hide my confusion at such mature demands from fellow elementary schoolers. And seeing Mira crying, the thought that I have to help her started to form. Mira was the girl I liked, and she was crying because she was upset. Besides, I was the only one there. I have to help her. While my head was filled with these thoughts, my body wouldn't move as I wanted it to. Mira was taller than me, and the 6th graders were much bigger than her, and there were 4 of them. Going out there was a very scary thing for me at the time. I was sweating cold sweat, and my feet wouldn't move from the spot as if glued to the ground. Meanwhile, Mira was getting verbally abused by the escalated 6th graders.
What a stubborn girl.
"Don't get cocky. You're not that pretty."
Mira kept crying out of fear, and I felt helpless and miserable because I couldn't muster the courage. That's when someone tapped me on the shoulder from behind. Surprised, I turned around, and there was my brother, Big Brother. Seeing his face, I couldn't hold back my tears any longer, as the tension I was feeling seemed to melt away.
What's wrong?
My brother seemed to guess what was going on from my demeanor and asked me in a low voice. I choked back my voice and told him what was happening, and he said,
Understood, you did well.
He patted my head gently and then walked into the lot where Mira was. The 6th graders, not expecting a middle schooler to intervene.
What are you doing?
My brother asked in a normal tone of voice, not intimidatingly, and the 6th graders quickly ran away.
"Jack, thank you."
Mira, wiping away her tears, thanked my brother. Mira, my childhood friend, of course knew my brother and admired him just like I did.
No, Michael told me about it.
My brother said that, trying to credit me for telling him. Even though I hadn't done anything, I was just watching.
"Thank you too, Michael."
I was genuinely happy when Mira thanked me, but I couldn't easily forgive myself for not being able to protect the girl I liked. At the same time, my admiration for my brother only grew stronger. As I grew up into middle school and then high school, I think I became somewhat stronger. I hardly ever cried, and I became less dependent on my brother. Yet, my brother, who went to a top university and got a job at a leading company without ever acting superior, remained ever gentle and kind. He continued to be my role model. I want to be a cool adult like my brother. Even though it wasn't always on my mind, I think it was that underlying feeling that drove me to work hard during my school years. Thanks to that effort, I might not have gone to the same university as my brother, but I did go to a pretty good one. And after graduating, I landed a job at a listed company in the events industry, which was always my dream. By this time, I had gained a lot more confidence in myself. And there was another thing that I came to admire around this time. It was that my brother got married at 24. After dating his high school sweetheart for nearly 8 years, they got married. I had met his wife many times since my brother was living at home. She was incredibly kind and beautiful. Of course, my admiration wasn't just for her looks, but also for the warm atmosphere between them and their gentle expressions that conveyed a deep love for each other. I hope to one day meet a partner with whom I could share life in such a way. That's what I thought. But a year later, at the coming-of-age ceremony, I reunited with Mira, my first lover. We had gone to different high schools, so I hadn't seen her since middle school graduation, but we hit it off right away and started dating. Even though we hadn't seen each other for a few years, we were childhood friends who knew each other well, so it was easy to relax and feel natural together. Continuing to date Mira into adulthood, I realized that we shared a warm atmosphere that I once admired in my brother's marriage, perhaps even more so. Then, at the age of 26, I proposed a marriage to Mira, and we got married. My brother knew Mira was my first lover, so he was incredibly happy for us. As a wedding gift, my brother and his wife gave us fancy dinnerware and celebrated with us in a big way. The wedding, blessed by my beloved Mira, my brother and his wife, whom I've always admired, and our family and friends, is something I'll never forget. But no one at that time could have imagined the unexpected events that would unfold in the years to come. 2 years after the wedding, Mira and I had a baby girl. First-time parenting was harder than we imagined, and there were sleepless nights, but we still felt happy. My brother and his wife, who lived fairly close by, would help out, saying, "Go on a date once in a while," and they would look after our daughter. I always felt supported by my brother and his wife, no matter how old we got. Then, 3 years later, Mira and I had our second child, another girl. Our eldest daughter, Sophie, was now 3 and still quite demanding. We didn't want to neglect her because of the new baby, so parenting became even more challenging. But this was something we were prepared for, and we managed to enjoy our busy lives. The reason we could enjoy ourselves despite the challenges was definitely because of the support from my brother and his wife. But neither Mira or I ever thought about what kind of troubles a constantly smiling and cheerful couple like them might be facing. One day, under the guise of a girls' day out, Mira, our 2 daughters, and my brother's wife went out for a picnic. Meanwhile, my brother and I had the rare opportunity to spend time just the 2 of us at my house. Thinking it was a good chance, I decided to talk about something that had been on my mind for a while. "Bro, I really appreciate everything. I always seem to be the one getting help, and I want to be useful to you for a change. If there's anything at all, just let me know, okay?" We had been watching a comedy DVD up until then, but my brother's reaction wasn't what I expected, and I looked at his face, puzzled. I thought he would just say thanks and smile, but instead, he had a serious look on his face. Is something wrong? You can tell me anything." My brother seemed hesitant, but after hearing my words, he seemed to make up his mind and began to speak. And then he said something astonishing.
Could you give me one of your kids?
I was speechless at such an unexpected request. Who could have predicted such a line? I wanted to think it was a joke, but I knew my brother well enough to know he wasn't the type to make such tasteless jokes. Plus, his expression was dead serious, and it didn't seem like he was kidding at all. I know it's outrageous and incredibly rude to ask, but I don't have anyone else to turn to. As he said this, large tears fell from my brother's eyes. I think it was the first time I had ever seen him cry. Later, I learned from my brother that his wife was ill and had become infertile. They were now 35, but it seemed they had known about her condition since their late 20s. His wife, not wanting to deprive my brother of a future with children because of her infertility, had offered a divorce, but my brother had decided to walk through life with her. But since my wife and I had our children, both he and his wife found it harder to suppress their desire for kids of their own, especially his wife, who would cry night after night to the point of insomnia. It was apparently quite painful for my brother to see her like that, and it seemed he had been deeply troubled for a long time. Mira and I were aware that my brother and his wife didn't have children, but we naively thought they had chosen not to have any. I had never imagined my brother, whom I always looked up to, could have such a problem. I truly wanted to help my brother and the person he loved, and there was no falsehood in that feeling. But the idea of giving up my own child, it wasn't something I could consider lightly. Of course, I didn't give an answer that day, and that night, I discussed it with Mira. Mira was just as shocked as I was, and it was unthinkable for her to consider the idea positively. But, after months of agonizing, we decided to entrust our younger daughter, Alice, to my brother and his wife. We agreed to let them raise her as their own daughter. It certainly wasn't an easy decision, but it was precisely because we loved and respected my brother so much that we wanted him to be happy. We couldn't help but feel that way, and we were confident that if anyone could make Alice happy, it would be my brother. My brother and his wife apologized to us with tears in their eyes and promised us, "We will make her happy, without fail." We believed their words and began to walk separate paths from Alice. We swore that our love for Alice would not change, even though we lived apart. She was just 7 months old when she went to live with my brother and his wife. Until she was about 2 years old, we lived close by and saw Alice and my brother's family often. Mary and I were relieved to see that Alice was growing up happily and that my brother and his wife seemed more joyful than before. She was well loved and seemed content. So despite the initial complexity of our feelings, we came to believe this was the right decision. As Alice approached 3 years old, my brother had to move overseas for work, which meant they would be separated from us. It was something we had anticipated, and while it felt bittersweet, Mira and I sent them off with smiles, always praying for their happiness together. 7 years have passed since then. Our eldest daughter, Sophie, living with us, is now 12, a lively and energetic 6th grader about to graduate from elementary school. She has only known Alice as her cousin and is unaware that she has a sister. She hasn't seen her cousin Alice in 7 years, but she seems to have faint memories of her. Now, after all this time, my brother's family is coming back to the country, and Sophie, Mira, and I are all looking forward to their return with great anticipation. Alice, now 10 years old, is someone we are incredibly excited to meet again. It's likely she doesn't remember us, and we wondered if we could converse naturally with her as if meeting a relative for the first time. Holding these curious and nervous farts, the moment arrived. A slender girl walked towards us, accompanied by my brother and his wife, each pushing a large suitcase. She was as tall as Sophie, who was 2 years older, and looked mature for her age. However, the mole on her eye, present since she was a baby, remained unchanged, and I recognized her immediately.
Hello.
Her clear, articulate voice was striking for a 10-year-old, and both Mira and I were taken aback. Her cheerful smile conveyed to us how lovingly my brother and his wife had raised her. Fighting back tears, I managed to say, "Hello, nice to meet you." Then Alice surprised us by saying,
It's not the first time we've met. I remember you from when I was little.
I remember being astonished that Alice, who last saw us when she was 3, could remember us. Of course, she probably remembered us as her cousin's family, not as her biological parents.
That's right. You have a good memory. I'm glad. Thank you.
Mira said that as she gently stroked Alice's hair, and I noticed her hand was trembling. Later on, our two families went to a theme park, and Sophie and Alice, being of the same age, seemed to get along very well. I was overjoyed to see the sisters enjoying each other's company, but out of respect for my brother and his wife, I tried not to dwell on the thought that they were siblings. Even during the time we couldn't meet, my brother and his wife regularly updated us about Alice, showing that they still respected us. This is why we continue to respect the fact that Alice was their child. Then Sophie wanted to go on a thrill ride. Mira and I aren't fans of such rides, so we asked my brother and his wife, who are more comfortable with them, to accompany her, leaving Alice, who also didn't like thrill rides, to wait with us. I never imagined that Alice, my wife, and I would spend time together, just the 3 of us, and it felt a bit awkward. "Do you want something to drink, Alice?" I asked, and she nodded with a smile. Then the 3 of us went to the refreshment stand together. Out of the many drinks available, Alice chose tomato juice, and I felt a small surge of happiness realizing she had inherited my love for tomatoes. "Here you go, Alice," I said as I handed her the juice, and then she said something unexpected.
Thank you, Dad.
I felt like my breath stopped. I never thought I'd be called Dad by Alice, having believed it would never happen in my lifetime. Mira was just as surprised as I was, but quickly regained her composure and tried to play it off with a laugh.
Haha, did you get mixed up? Maybe your uncle looks a little like your dad because we're brothers.
Mira's smile masked her true feelings, but then
I didn't get it wrong, ma'am.
Alice corrected herself, referring to Mira as well.
Oh.
I was stunned, unable to believe what I was hearing, while Mira couldn't hold back her tears anymore.
Why?
As Mira asked through her tears, trying to hide her crying face, Alice shared something with us. On her 10th birthday, my brother and his wife had told her the truth. They had been happy to raise Alice as their daughter, but as she grew up, they felt a growing sense of guilt. They wanted her to know the truth and then decide for herself what she wanted to do about it. That's what my brother and his wife had told her. It might seem difficult for a 10-year-old girl to accept such a truth, but Alice wasn't surprised. She said she had memories not only from infancy, but even from when she was in the womb. While it's not common, there are rare instances of children with such early memories. Of course, she didn't remember everything vividly, but she did have a proper recollection of the days when we were together as a family.
But, I really love my current mom and dad, too. They're kind and fun, and they love me a lot.
Alice said with a sparkle in her eyes, a lively expression that conveyed her genuine love for my brother and his wife.
But I'm really happy that you brought me into this world, and because of that, I can live a fun life. So, I've always wanted to say thank you for that.
Hearing those words from Alice, despite thinking I'd outgrown my tendency to cry, I found myself unable to stop the tears. Thank you. Alice's dad is my brother, who I'm so proud of, so I'm sure you'll always be happy. Thank you so much for coming to tell us this. I told Alice this, and the three of us shared what was both the first and last embrace as a family. 2 months later, Alice returned overseas with my brother and his wife. Knowing her truth, she chose to be with them. While this was a little sad for us, the happiness we felt for her was much greater. It was a confirmation that the path we all had chosen for Alice was the right one for her. We continue to pray under the vast sky that Alice will never forget her sparkling smile and that she will live a joyful life.